Today we're going to take a look at the Imperial Navy Marauder Destroyer, one of the oldest kits actually from Forge World. This thing has been around for quite some time now. It's rather large, as you're going to see. If you, I don't know what order this stuff's going to come out in, but we have a unboxing to do of the Tiger Shark for the town. It's about the same size. Here you can see a better detail of the nose and such right here. This is so hard to see. Forge World, you're killing me. But it's based, loosely on a lot of World War II planes. I mean, you could see design similarities all over the place. So it's definitely an amalgam of a bunch of different cool-looking bombers slash interceptor ground attack vehicles. You can see all the autocannons there that's on each side of the nose. Then there's a twin assault cannon on the back and a turret heavy bolter at the top. It goes for 210 pounds, which right now the pound is actually down pretty well. So it's clocks in closer to $300 US. So let's add to cart. As you can see, it's a rather big vehicle here. It takes up almost all of the camera frame from the side here. You can, man, it's just a really cool looking vehicle. Now, like I said, it does have a little bit of age to it. It's not, designed with all the computers and all the cool stuff that they have these days. This kit is literally almost 20 years old from them. But that being said, sometimes the oldies are the goodies, because there's a lot of different modular components to this actually that you can do to assemble it. Now, this particular one was painted up by Dark Bunny Creatives for me. I gave them the colors to match for my Deathcore Krieg army, which maybe I'll showcase that one next. We got some Pask and we got some cool models all painted up. Pask is Cadian. We still like using him for kind of whatever your Deathcore Krieg models, but hey, why not do any guards? So this was painted with cold gray and stonewall gray for all the grays here, and then the streaks were that harvest brown, that Reaper harvest brown we love so much, cut back with a little bit of black. Then the reds are just the work up, not going too light or anything like that. And I think it worked well. There's great streaking on it. Bombers are just dirty. This is the ground attack version of the bomber, so to speak. But I still think they knocked it out of the park, and they matched my existing Deathcore and Vultures. Oh, you guys have seen the Vulture. That's right. We did that one already. So it definitely matches the Vulture on here. Not that they're any particular color scheme, because all of these are aeronautical and imperialis and don't benefit from Cadian rules or Deathcore rules or anything like that, unfortunately. Now, component wise, it's actually a pretty neat kit. So you've got the turret that separates out, and you can get in there and get the pilot, and he's pretty neat because he just kind of sits in there and just dockets things up, and then it goes back together like this, and it's meant to not be glued down, which is definitely something that really was a thing back then with these models not being able to move. So when you bought Forge World, you could actually move a whole bunch of stuff. Now, we could magnetize it, but I mean, for real, it's not that big. And then back here, the assault cannon too. Actually, we magnetized a couple of sections here. So here's the assault cannon that's all magnetized up, so it can be on a swivel. Now, it is meant to actually just swivel using that, similar to the Land Raider, but I just thought magnetizing it in general would be good. And for transporting, actually magnetize this whole section right here, just because the lower profile made it a little bit easier to fit in the boxes, believe it or not. So this is actually how it comes with the fuselage. Let's see. And then I had to put some blocks in there just to get all that squared up. So it's inherently a hollow mini, so I have to be careful when we handle this. Up front, these are all magnetized too, in case they ever came out with any upgrade kits. And the cockpit itself is removable as well, which is pretty neat. You can see the flight deck and communications officer. And then normally, I think this would go down to another deck, and they could run the length of the plane through the fuselage. And then back here, sometimes you would have 50 cals and stuff, sticking out the old World War II bombers. But this particular one isn't quite designed that way, which it's still pretty cool nonetheless. And being able to take off all the little parts and hatches and things here is pretty neat. Now from the front, let me hold this down so it don't flip. So from the front, you can see all the detail there on all the autocannons and everything. And on the bottom, it gets even cooler. So you've got these Death Strike missiles, and magnetize them to actually fit on here. You can remove them during play if you want, or there's hard points here, so if they ever come out with any other upgrades, you could actually kind of swap them out. And then these are actually magnetized, the gear, to give them a little bit more strength. So if you want to be like, oh, well, you know, we're in flight here, just take them off, and they wouldn't look kind of weird if you're trying to do that in flight pose. There was a Bombay door with the 2 Aquilas on it, but I have since lost that. I don't know exactly where it is. I hope I saved it somewhere. And then this gear comes off as well. So that's kind of... But Forge World didn't skimp on any detail, even though it's the bottom here. You can see everything looks great. You know, there's really nice core detail and stuff in here. And for being almost 20 years old, that's really cool to see. Now, originally they didn't have a way. You know, you didn't really have a flying stand or stem or anything like that. They came out about 2007 with the Vulture Vendetta. So what we did here was magnetize up this little, just a standalone piece that you could buy from them for a time, and it seems to hold the weight thus far. So right in here in the Bombay, where is it? Good. So it does lock in a little bit. It takes a second to lock in, but for the most part, it's good to go. Just have to be very careful handling it. But it's something that's cool, and you know, if you don't have a bunch of people coming through walking around things, you could just leave it on a shelf and not really have to worry about it. And that's why it's kind of cool to be able to take this gear off, because then it's not like, why is that? Is it about to land? Like, what's going on? I don't know. Don't ask me why they're not wheels. I guess it does VTOL. Like, I don't know how that all works. But either way, it's a pretty cool kit, and you know, despite its age and its price tag, it's still a pretty neat little kit. You know, for the guard player that kind of, you know, has it all, so to speak. So let's talk about its rules though, because its rules are very interesting too. As we saw with the Vulture, it's a little bit harder to get rerolls and such, and get extra benefits for anything with the Aeronautical Imperialis keyword. Oh, one more thing. Let's talk about size real quick, so I'm going to get you a comparison here. So if you are interested in getting this kit from Forge World, you would have an idea of what you're getting into. So about 15.5, well, with the autocannons or the salt cannons, about 17 by 16 on each wing right there. Now remember, 17 is the length of the Thunderhawk, believe it or not. So it's got the length of a Thunderhawk, but not quite the wingspan, so to speak. Or actually, no, that's the wingspan of the Thunderhawk. The Thunderhawk's 19 long. And remember, the Tiger Shark that we reviewed may or may not have already dropped as a unboxing here on the channel. Well, it fits. It literally has the same wingspan, but it's a little bit smaller. However, unfortunately, the Marauder Destroyer has a Titanic keyword, which means that if the Tiger Shark gets a hold of it with a shot and it's hitting on twos, remember, oof, that's gonna be a lot of damage coming at this little guy right here. Probably not gonna survive with his 20 wounds. And speaking of wounds, let's talk about stats. So currently, its rules are in the Imperial Armor Index, Forces of the Astra Militarum, along with the Bomber and all of the Vulture and stuff that you've already seen here on the channel, right? The rule points have changed a little bit, but you know, as far as the actual rules, they haven't seen much change at all since 8th edition came around. So it's, for the most part, hitting on 4s. Its movement is 20 to 45, strength 7, toughness 7, 20 wounds, 3 attacks, 7 leadership, 3 up save. Now it's not able, because it can't change modes, it's not able to actually charge, and can only be charged by units that can fly, and attacked by units that can fly in the fight phase. Crash and burn blows up D6 inches. It could do, it blows up 6 inches, could do D6 mortal wounds right there. It is hard to hit, so you're neg 1 to hit it. It can be equipped with heavy bombs for 30 points each. I don't think. Just because, unless you're going up against orcs and you're trying to do like a themey battle or something like that, I just don't think they're effective for 30 points. So we're not going to really talk about that. I'll let you crunch the numbers. You roll 3d6 for each vehicle or monster in the unit. for after the Marauder Destroyer has moved, pick an enemy unit that it flew over and roll 3d6 for each vehicle or monster in the unit, or a single d6 for every other model in the unit, up to a maximum of 12d6. For every roll of a 4 up, the unit suffers a mortal wound. Well, these are actually better than the tactical bombs. Okay, so they're not amazing, but they might be closer to worth 30 points than I thought they were a second ago. It does have the Sky Fortress special rule, which is kind of what makes it even playable at that point, because you're not gonna have to suffer the penalty for moving and firing heavy weapons at that point, which everything on here is a heavy weapon. So it's always gonna be hitting on the 4s for the most part. It doesn't have the macro weapon or anything like that, like we saw with the Tiger Shark, so you don't have to worry about that either. Now, how many points is it? Well, that's kind of that's a tough sell. It's 309 points stock, and that's with the twin assault cannon, the 3 twin auto cannons, which auto cannons are good, don't get me wrong. The twin heavy bolter that's at the top, and no heavy bombs. So now you can add 8 of the Hellstrike missiles, which are pretty decent, but those are 240 points if you take all 8. So that's, you have to take all 8. So it's pretty rough. Like, that's a tough pill to swallow. 240 points for 8 missiles. Now, on average, remember, you're hitting on 4s, and there's only a couple other ways to improve what you're hitting on. So you might hit with half of those, right? At strength 8, you're probably going to wound, and you're going to be doing a lot of damage, but now you're putting the points of this at like around 549 points. And I just don't think in anything really super competitive, it's worth it. Now, fluff-wise and fun-wise, it's great. Don't get me wrong. Now, here's a couple of things to consider. If you do have a Psyker within range, you can definitely cast Night Shroud and or Psychic Barrier on it. Primary Psykers are great for that. I would definitely recommend a neg 1 to hit. Now, this is good because it's all Astra Militarum units. You don't have to worry about it being Cadian or anything like that. Psychic Barrier just gives you +1 to your save, but I feel like at that point, you know, anything that hits you that's worth hitting you is going to be negging to your save to begin with. But if you have the Psykers to get it off and nothing else better to throw them on, it might be worth it to do it there, for sure. But I would start with a neg 1 and kind of see where that goes. There are a couple stratagems that could affect this as well. Defensive gunners, if you do get assaulted by something with the fly keyword, you'd be able to overwatch them on a 5/6. And don't get it twisted, an assault cannon, a heavy bolter, and 3 twin auto cannons with 4 shots each, overwatching on 5s, might actually dissuade anybody from assaulting it, and then Hellstrikes as well. Hard to say, but definitely worth it for 1 CP in desperation. And Vengeance for Cadia, if you are going up against anything with Chaos, you get to, whether it's Overwatch or not, reroll failed hit and wound rolls for models in this unit. So that's pretty neat to see too. But again, very situational. Everything about this screams, I am the coolest looking thing, but I am super situational. But if you have every other tank, it might be worth buying me. I don't know. I think it's cool because, you know, most folks are kind of fans of air power and things like that. And once you have every tank out there, or just the tanks that appeal to you, you might start looking up, so to speak, to the skies for all the cool air kits out there. And eventually, you definitely might consider the Destroyer, because after the Vulture and the Lightning and or the Thunderbolt, I feel like this is the natural progression. But I just happened to get one for a good deal. Dark Bunny Creators painted it, so, you know, we could promote them and stuff. So I definitely wanted to get this on here and show it to you guys, because it is pretty cool. And Dark Bunny, you know, they always do such a dope paint scheme in job on anything they touch. So literally classically trained artists, Valles and Phil, I don't know, he's like on a different level than the rest of it. He lives on a different painting astro plan than the rest of us, for sure. So that's about it for this one. Please leave a comments in there, you know, if you got any rules, comments, or anything like that on better or worse ways to use the Marauder Destroyer, anything I might have overlooked. But I think I was pretty thorough about it, because every time I go to play with this thing, I try to like comb all the rules and kind of come up with some dope combos, and it just always seems to fall flat. Although sometimes people just ignore it and it just flies around the tabletop doing combat air patrols, and it's hilarious. But more often than not, it's just lackluster. It's very sad. It makes me sad. But it's very cool looking, and I love having it on display here in the studio. It's one of my favorite aircrafts out there for the Warhammer 4. So that's it for this one. Please work out those hobby muscles. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our videos.